I'm Turk Strongman. Thank you for selecting this video on how to make psychological breakthroughs with respect to affairs in your life that may result in patterns of behavior or may result in unfavorable patterns of behavior or unfavorable physiological responses to affairs, such as anxiety, intense confusion, dissociation, or a feeling of just not knowing how to go about something as it might more naturally occur in your psychological life. Beyond that, right now, I can't give a more specific description of what this video is about. You'll have to stay tuned to find out. And this could be of great value to you because this is rare information. Nonetheless, thank you for selecting this video, and if you haven't done so already, take a moment to subscribe to this channel right now. I think it's in your own best interests. And while you're at it, activate the notification bell feature. If by the end of the video you found that you liked it, please give it a thumb up. If you found that you didn't like it, give it the other thumb up. Share the joy of the channel with others. And now let's move on. I'm going to have to give you two examples of the sorts of things I'm talking about here. Two examples. The content of those examples, they differ rather widely from one another. We're going for the common elements in them here. And then we'll address how to get through those things. First, the first example is my own, from my own experience. For many years in my life, I could not get to sleep naturally. It just wouldn't happen. I needed medication for that, to get to sleep. My mind just wouldn't shut off. When it was time to go to sleep, it wouldn't do whatever a person's mind does when a person just goes to sleep naturally. Just, like you get in bed, you put your head on the pillow, you close your eyes, and you go to sleep. Just that. Whatever takes place mentally in that going to sleep didn't happen for me for many years. It got to the point where I could no longer remember what that was like. Trying to figure out how to make that happen, to me, was even how to go about trying to figure that out escaped me. I didn't know what it was like. And the possibility of going to sleep naturally, like other people do, seemed very far away from me. It was outside of my range of experience that I could recall. That's one example. And then there are the difficulties that come with that. How do you figure that out? How do you break through? How do you mentally figure out how to cause a more normal mental process to occur? Here's example number 2. This is from somebody else's life experience. The experience involves having a response to, it's a person who needs to physically move in a rather slow fashion. Otherwise, the person may lose physical balance. Rapid movement or the tendency to hurry physically results in an equilibrium difficulty, a stumbling, falling, knocking things over, breaking things unintentionally, accidentally, during the fall, the physical falling. But and two conditions make this happen. One being tired, just tired, and two, rushing. So, and this usually occurs, the rushing usually occurs in moments when the person feels like that's what they have to do. And that manifests in two ways for that person. One is a general way, just feeling like a person has to be moving faster in life, in daily activities, than is safe for them to do. To go about daily physical activities like other people do. And then in a more specific way, that being in response to specific sensory inputs, like in the company of someone else, when that someone else seems to be indicating a state of urgency that involves action. Like, oh, I cut my finger, I need a Band-Aid. And the person says it with a sense of urgency. It comes across as something that requires quick action. Or the person urges hurrying or indicates hurrying, rushing, like, let's go. Or something like, anything like that. Let's get going. We got to get going. Anything like that. Okay? The reaction psychologically for the person with this difficulty involves the mind, the thoughts starting to rush, the blood pressure going up, the stress building up, anxiety, confusion, inability to think clearly, and then a physical rushing in the manner almost of a chicken with its head cut off because of the psychological disturbance that's going on, the confusion, the not knowing exactly what to do right now. Although under other conditions, knowing exactly what to do in such a circumstance. But now that it's happening, there's just confusion. And then loss of physical balance. Boiling down to, its immediate physical cause being rushing, moving more rapidly than what is actually safe for that person to do. Then bodily injury can happen. Emotional upset results. Damage to property may result. Agitation in observers' minds. And personal experience at the time. A little shocking experience for everybody involved. Okay, that's another example. How so? Because it involves a mental process that's not occurring in a desirable fashion. And the conception of what it would be like for it to occur in a more natural way, like occurs with other people, like that which occurs with other people in those same situations. It seems to be a foreign thing. Can't even really imagine it. It's not within the person's experience for things to happen like that. They might be able to have a mental picture of it happening normally, like moving slowly. but some kind of a mental picture or concept of what the mental process is that's associated with moving more slowly under those conditions, or how to get to that, how to make that happen, is a foreign thing. It just, like, there's this huge gap between the way it does happen and the more desirable way. Like, that's a very distant concept. It's almost not graspable. Can't really get your mind wrapped around that or make that part of your mental content. So I hope you understand the parallels here among these two experiences. Any of the things that I've just said about the one and then said in similar words about the second one here are the common points that I'm addressing. And the problem that comes up here is, how do you figure out how to close that gap between what does happen and what you know should be happening instead, or what you want to have happen instead, from the abnormal to the normal? How do you do that? I mean, how do you get across that? How do you bridge that gap? Now, I'll tell you the resolve for each of these two examples. And then I hope we can see the similarities among those. And then just kind of come up with like a little, like turn that comparison, the common points there, into kind of like a formula stated in terms of, this is how you do that, regardless of the content, the actual happenstance, the definition of your difficulty. That's very much the same, but not necessarily having to do with getting to sleep or mental confusion and anxiety that results in physical rushing. Could be any such thing. We're after the psychological characteristics of it, and then we're after the problems associated with that and the difficulty in figuring out how to break through that. All right. With the sleep, I came to a set of conditions that was prolonged, during which I had no access to the medication to get to sleep. So I was in a position of either never getting to sleep, or I had to figure out how to make it happen naturally, and then do that. It was the thing that wasn't working for me that I now needed to do if I were to sleep. Excuse me. Well, I came face to face with the difficulties of working that out, given the point that I had arrived at in the problem in my life, with the problem in my life. How could I mentally figure out that which I could not grasp? The normal way that it happens for people, when I did not have any conscious awareness of how that works. And furthermore, with the sleep thing, there's an added what you might call it, rub inherent to the whole thing. If I were to have the experience, kind of by accident, of going to sleep naturally, how am I to know what's going on mentally while it's happening, so that I can try to repeat it because it would be happening while I'm going to sleep. The only way for me to recall how that worked would be after I woke up. But how could I remember exactly what was going on mentally during that process? Because, again, I was going to sleep. And then that involved not really being consciously aware of exactly what's taking place mentally. Maybe the very beginning moment of it. But the rest, I'm going to sleep. I'm moving away from conscious awareness. So, but I needed to be consciously aware of it. Now, if I knew that I was going to sleep naturally during such an incidental occurrence of that, and then decided, okay, I'm going to remain aware of what's going on here, well then, that's not going to sleep. That's not part of going to sleep. So I would have to figure this out. And then, they come up with a method. But I wouldn't know what method. Because I didn't know what it was like at all. And it seemed like any method involved some kind of conscious employment of an experiment, which then does not result in going to sleep. I hope you can understand or appreciate the nature of the difficulties involved with overcoming this, with closing that gap between what happens, my knowledge, my experience of what actually happens with me, and the desired way for it to happen. It seemed a very distant thing, and I had no idea what to do to figure this out. But I had to. It eventually, now here we move into the next phase of this discussion over this example of it. The solution. It occurred to me, well, a new way of understanding what I always knew about it. The core thing that was going on with me was that my mind, I couldn't shut off my mind. It wouldn't turn off. The normal little switch that gets flipped from on to off or off to on, depending on which way you look at this, going from being awake to going to sleep. If you could just imagine a little switch in there, like you lay down, you close your eyes, and then a switch gets flipped, from on to off or off to on, it changes its on-off state into going to sleep now. You're awake, and you're going to sleep. But one of the main characteristics of that, the one for me was that the switch didn't get flipped with respect to my mind at work in its conscious way to its shutting off, that turning off. Couldn't turn off my mind. Couldn't shut off my mind. That's a common way to put it. I just can't get my mind to shut off. Well, I always knew that. So advice such as, well, turn off your mind, like stop it, switch it off. Well, that's what I didn't know how to do. And I didn't know what it felt like for that to happen. I had no idea how to get there. It seemed like some complicated process must take place in figuring that out. So, it dawned on my awareness that perhaps the simplest thing, the problem in itself, was its own answer. It says that if I figured it out, and it actually worked, it would be the answer had been right in front of my face all the time. Nothing complicated at all. Okay, so here's the way it worked. for me. Literally. Specifically now. The problem is I couldn't get my mind to shut off. And what is the main component of that? There's a series of mental images going there. And the thinking involves mental images. It was like the movie going on in my mind, it just would keep playing. It would not stop. And I thought about this. Maybe all I really need to do or accomplish is to stop the moving mental picture going on. Well, then, that just seems so too obvious. Like, yeah, that's the problem. I don't know how to do that. So I tried something. Moving mental picture, like a movie. A mental movie. But what does it mean for that to stop? What does that involve? So I thought of a movie reel. You know? Like in a movie theater. A film on a reel. It's on the projector. The reels are turning, right? There are still frames. If you take the film and you hold it up to light, you know, a length of the film, and you see all these still images. What do you see if you stop the film, but you don't turn off the projector? You just stop the movie's motion. It's not like everything just went blank, or the projector bulb turned off, or you switched off the projector. What you see is a still frame. It just stops where it is. The movie has stopped. That doesn't mean it disappeared. It just stopped. And isn't that what the word that is used? The very nature of the problem? My mind won't stop. It won't, the movie, the mental movie, the progress of thoughts, the movie won't stop. I had been for years taking that to mean some complex thing, and that getting it to stop would be some complicated procedure, like how do I turn off my brain, or how do I... No, that was too complicated. Considering that was just tied right in with that notion that the solution or the normal way to get to sleep, the mental aspects of it, the characteristics of it, that exist while that's actually happening, going to sleep naturally, seemed like some kind of really far away thing, but really, there was no distance at all. And any of the complexities involved in making that happen or in figuring that out were not real. Because the moment that I got this idea that corresponded 1-to-1, you know, like precisely with the nature of the problem, stop the movie. The answer I found to be very simple to employ. I stop the movie in my mind. I'm actually laying there now, right? Engaged in the problem. The problem way of trying to sleep, right? The mental movie just keeps going. So I thought, right, I'm going to choose a moment here in that movie and freeze frame it. Okay, so let's say it's an action movie going on in my head. I remember seeing a movie lately, and I'll use that. It was a movie with Eric Roberts in it and somebody else. The two characters in the movie, one played by Eric Roberts, had escaped from prison together. And now they were on a train. They had kind of hijacked the train together, and they got into a fight, an argument. And Eric Roberts is about to whack the other guy on the head with a wrench. Okay, a nice action moment. One that I can clearly hold in my mind right now, so I'm using it as an example here, like as if this was the movie going on in my head while trying to sleep. Okay, so here comes the action, and it includes somebody or me, Eric Roberts, whoever, whatever, right, about to whack somebody on the head with a wrench. Oh, and I stop the action. Just like this. And freeze frame it. I could do that. So I did it. That's what I tried. One night. And it worked. I didn't entertain other thoughts like, now can I go to sleep or any such thing. I just freeze framed. Right there. And focused on that. That still shot. What had I actually done? I stopped the mental motion picture. I stopped it. I didn't shut off my brain. I didn't do any such thing. Nothing complicated. I went straight to doing what I knew needed to happen. Given my long experience with the nature of the problem, I couldn't shut off the mental motion picture going on. It would not stop. So I stopped it. Simple as that. Just a simple stop. Nothing more. Just that. I did what needed to happen. And that wasn't really difficult at all. Difficult to remember to do? Yeah. Some kind of a psychological resistance to actually doing it when I need to do it? Yeah. But if I have found that in almost every case, like 90% of the time, if I did that, and then just stuck with that freeze frame, without other clutter breaking in, just keep with the freeze frame. Like one of those little still shots in a movie film. Looking at it, holding it up to the light, and just look at that one. It's not moving. 90% of the time when I did that, I'd end up, next thing I know, waking up after having gone to sleep. All right. Now, let's go over to the other example. A person who has a problem with rushing, not being able to figure out what the hell to do, to move slowly when it's time to have to do that. But instead, all this mental activity takes place. It's another example of not being able to shut something off, but the real problem, that the real difficulty, the resulting difficulty is knocking things over, rushing, physically rushing. The person could not figure out how to make that happen. To actually engage in the behavior, the thing that is the desirable thing to do. The safe thing to do, the one that does not result in physical injury or structural damage. It seems really far off. But what is the thing to do? It's to move slowly. I've known the person for over 10 years. And many times I have said, you got to move more slowly. And the person says, I know, but I can't make that happen under these conditions when these things arise. I don't know how to do that. And I say, does the idea of making that happen, or of that happening, seem really far away to you? Yeah! I've been working on it. I've been trying. I have tried this. I have tried that. I have tried to slow down my mind. I have tried to do all of this. And I can't. I don't know how. I don't know how. I finally related my story about going to sleep to the person and said, look, here, there are a lot of similarities here. A lot of similarities. The basic structure of the problem and the structure of trying to figure out the solution, they parallel one another here. I said, I asked, when you think of slowing down physically, does that just cause you a lot of confusion? You know, you figured that getting from what really happens with you to that is some kind of complex procedure. You know, the end result of which, or the employment of which, or the determining of the nature of which just escapes you. And she said, yeah. And I said, well, how about this? You just do it. And she said, I know that. That's the problem. And I said, wait. When I say you just do it, does what comes to mind for you involve a lot of complexity? A whole lot of things that you don't even know about, the natures of which you don't know about? You know, like something complicated, a lot of steps involved. And she said, yeah. And I said, and those, all of that unknown, that seems to be chock full of detail, if you knew it, makes that distance between your experience and what you know and the desired end seem just like really far off. And she said, yeah. And I said, well, all that detail, all that complexity, all that distance from you, from your conceptions, is fake. It's not, it doesn't exist in reality. That's all a contrivance of your own mind due to your experience with this thing built up, or due to what got you into this situation in the first place in life. Social situations in your childhood, whatever. This notion that you just have to go faster. But there really is no distance there. There really is no complexity. So when I say just to do it, plain, it's that easy, it's that simple. All of that stuff that comes to mind, that immediately causes you to feel very frustrated over this, is not real stuff. When I'm saying just do it, I mean only that. None of that other stuff. That stuff has no real place in how to make this happen. All of that stuff that has no real place in it is that gap. But it's a fake gap. So when I say it again now, just do that. Just move more slowly. That's all I'm referring to. And I know you can move slowly. I've seen you do it many times. That's what you normally do. But all this gap stuff comes in whenever you feel like you're under a rush, or kind of like one of the aspects of your general way of going about things. But I know that even in that general way, that general notion that you have to just move faster in life to be like other people, within that, you do have your moments of moving slowly. So even when this is a general notion that you have about the way you should be doing things, even with that, you can move slowly. The real difficulty here arises, the real moments of calamity here with your difficulty with this occurred during intense moments of the general notion. More concentrated, more powerful moments of it. But you can move slowly. And that's all I'm referring to doing. And she said, I think I'm getting an understanding of this. And I said, well, then let me put it in a nutshell for you. The method to get there is the same as the there. They are not two different things. There's nothing detailed or complex. In other words, the idea of where you want to get to, moving slowly, that's a simple thing. It's not detailed or distant from you at all. She said, right. And I said, well, the way to get there is that same thing. There's no more complexity than the first thing. There's no more detail involved. There's no more distance from you than that. Then what there was is it's immediate. There's nothing in between. The way to do it and it are the same thing. Move slowly. And she said, oh my God, really? And I said, yeah, they are the same thing. The how and the what are identical with one another. It's not two different things. And it worked for her. Took some practice to remember to do it. Took some practice in overcoming some kind of a resistance to doing it. But when done, about 90% of the time, it worked. I hope that you can extract the formula from this and apply it to your own parallel, analogous situations if you have any. This is information that you do not get from people. Very rare. Well, I hope that it's going to serve you well, or that you can help somebody else by putting things into this perspective for somebody. Because for me, my discovery with the sleep situation, and for this other person, this way of cognizing the affair, this manner of describing the affair, bridged the gap. Finally. So, did you like the video? Thumb up. Didn't like it? Other thumb up. Subscribe. Activate the notification bell feature. Share the joy of the channel with others. Comment respectfully. Remember, you heard it here on Thuranki Ramacharaka. I'm Turk Strongman. Be well.